10th meeting of the Water Committee. And as always, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting today on the traditional unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, and we thank them for the stewardship of the land and waters of which we enjoy. And our first item is the resolution status report. Okay, we've got Grieve and Grant. And any discussion or questions on that report? Seeing none, is there anyone opposed to receipt? Seeing none, that's carried, and we'll go on to the Comox Valley Water Management Advisory minutes. Grant and Hillian, and any questions or comments on those minutes? Seeing none, is there anyone opposed to adoption of those? Seeing none, that's carried, and we're on to the Coal Beach Property Management update. Hey, Grant and Wilco Hamilton, and then we've got, we'll turn it over to staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to the Water Committee. Our Watershed Protection Coordinator, Zoe Norcross-New, will be introducing this report with a presentation, and will support the discussion to follow. Thanks, Zoe.
Thank you, James, and through the Chair. You may recall that just over a year ago, we presented a draft management plan for the lands at Comox Lake and Perseverance Creek, which we had just completed. And today we're just going to be providing an update on what we have been doing in terms of implementation of this plan for the last year or so. We are still awaiting feedback from Comox First Nation regarding the plan and the extent to which Comox would like to be involved in the management of these lands. At this time, we have been granted the opportunity to present to Chief and Council in September of 2025. So in the meantime, we have proceeded with some of the more urgent action items that were necessary to address public safety and watershed protection at the property, which I'll be giving a brief summary of today. I wanted to acknowledge that the Comox Lake watershed is located in the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation and supplies water to over 50,000 people. The watershed has been an important source of food and sustenance to the Comox people for thousands of years and has been historically a crucial path for travel and trade between the Salish Sea and the Alberni Valley. Upon completion of the draft management plan, there were a few urgent steps that were necessary to allow for safe access for fire and paramedic response to the property. Mostly this included some work on access roads, which had the secondary benefit of reducing the appeal for off-road vehicle use of the property, and also the restoration of natural habitat along the existing degraded routes. You can see the before and after photo of one of the stretches of the access road on this slide. New signage was installed to clearly inform property users of prohibited activities such as fires, camping, and off-road vehicle use, and encourage stewardship of these lands. I'd also like to mention that the signage was a partnership between the CDRD, the Cumberland Community Forest Society, and the Village of Cumberland. And the same signage was installed on all the properties that are owned by those three entities in this area that collectively form the conservation lands at Comox Lake and Perseverance Creek. It was determined that it was would be much more effective in terms of conveying the type of intended behavior that we wanted if we had consistent signage and language across all of the properties in this area that have the same designation for conservation. Another really important step was the installation of a pedestrian bridge over Perseverance Creek. This project was led by the Cumberland Community Forest Society, and there was a contribution from the CDRD. One of the main goals here was to get foot traffic out of the sensitive fish habitat in Perseverance Creek. So the bridge allowed for restoration of and recovery of the creek bed and improves water quality as well. And this bridge was definitely supported by the Comox First Nation, as this is an important fish-bearing creek. I should also mention it's now accessible for everyone to access this property because previously it was pretty difficult for young families and people with disabilities to cross that area of the creek. So other steps that were taken in 2024 was the daily security patrols, which we had been doing for years previous to that. And those are basically evening visits by Busy Bee Forestry, and they would just basically turn up at random hours of the afternoon or evening to make sure that there were nobody having campfires, nobody camping, and they would speak to off-road vehicle users and inform them that that activity was not allowed on the property. Since then, last year, we also began some stewardship patrols once or twice a week based on the time of year, once a week during the winter, and twice a week during the busier times of the summer and the spring. And there's also been some installation of natural barriers and restoration fencing to try to redirect human activity to areas where it is safe and designated to do so, and keep it away from the areas where we're hoping that restoration can take place. So I mentioned we have stewardship patrols. I'm going to just briefly mention what the stewardship patrols involve. Luke English is currently conducting those patrols. And when he's out there, he records a fair bit of data. So he records whether or not there's evidence of fires having occurred. And he has conversations with people and he records notes on what those conversations are. He also monitors the status of the signage. So we have a number of different locations where the signs are installed, and he just checks on all of them to make sure that they're still intact. And if they're not intact, he makes a note of what needs to be done, what needs to be replaced. He also checks on the fencing that's been installed. So if the fencing has been damaged, he makes a note of that, and that can get repaired. He makes a note of whether it's been damaged naturally or if it has been damaged by, looks like it's been damaged by humans. And finally, most interestingly, he collects a lot of data on waste, including the type, beverage containers, food packaging, recreational toys, other miscellaneous, and last but not least, evidence of human waste. And there's a surprisingly frequent occurrence of human waste detection on the property, which highlights the need for potential solution to that in the form of toilet facilities out there. So he's recording a lot of data when he's out there, and he's also having conversations with people in just a really friendly way and just informing them of the conservation plan and doing a really great job of raising public awareness and improving stewardship of the property. So for 2025, this summer, what we are continuing to do is we're looking to increase the security patrol presence during the evening hours and have somebody on site continuously from the 6 to 10 p.m. hours. We're looking at installation of 2 gates at access road entrances, which should be taking place in the next week, and continued access road maintenance and stewardship patrols to make sure that there's safe access for emergency vehicles. And finally, next steps. In addition to the 2025 risk management activities, which we'll be carrying out through this year, we're hoping to engage with Comox First Nation in September. And pending Comox input, if the plan receives support, then we will bring the plan back to this committee for approval of the management plan. And pending also the interest of the support from Comox First Nation, if there are items within the plan, such as the installation of a toilet or garbage cans or any other capital recommendations from the plan, then we may seek a budget amendment to include these in future financial plans and schedule further capital projects for 2026. And that is the end of my presentation, and I would be happy to take any questions you may have.
Great, thanks so much, Zoe. Okay, we'll turn it over, and we've got Director Arbor. Go ahead, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Zoe, for the report. And I mean, it's great that we have some presence and somebody with eyes on the ground that can actually think about what could work. And I think you're right. Like I was over this weekend at seeing the campground at Cumberland Lake Park, and I drove a few times back, and that place, the entrance to that place was always full of cars, morning, night, daytime. So it's people are really enjoying it and probably enjoying the bridge as well. And I think so I just want to show support. I think a garbage can. I'm just wondering if a sign, if we've ever thought about just a sign that says pack it in, pack it out, that kind of like messaging, you know, to see if we could try for a year or two to see if it changes behavior. I doubt it would. And then because I'm from Hornby and Chris is from Hornby, you know, if you go for a toilet, it might be worth thinking about something like a composting toilet, you know, that can, you don't need to bring a truck if you were putting it near the beach, something like that. You don't need to, you know, for dealing with the materials and all that. It might be easier to handle than the sludge of a traditional kind of outhouse. Could have some education value as well for the public. So just my input, but good work, and I look forward to the full plan.
Thank you.
Did you want to respond to any of that, Zoe? I did notice on the signage, it does say pack it in, pack it out, but.
Yes, that's right. It does.
Yeah.
Say it. Yeah, that is definitely something that we were, when we first started talking about this project, our original goal was to not put garbage cans out there. However, when it became apparent that a bathroom was, or a toilet facility was necessary out there, Chris, who's very familiar with park toilets from his youth, working on Hornby, informed me that you have to have a garbage can if you have a toilet, because otherwise all the garbage ends up in the toilet, and then it stops working. So yeah, so despite that, we do tend to keep a focus on the pack it in, pack it out messaging for sure. And the second piece was, what was the second part of the question? Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this item? Go ahead, Director McCollum.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. A question I had was just kind of around some of the more higher risk concerning activity, specifically like the fires. I would maybe categorize some of the motorbike use in that category as well, depending on the time of year. And I've been on that beach and told people to put out fires in the time since we've acquired this. So I know it is a regular problem because I actually don't go there very often. And I guess my question is, do we have the ability to fine or look at kind of more serious enforcement and put up some signage to that effect? And yeah, if that's been discussed at a staff level, just kind of maybe double underlining why that's not okay.
Thank you. Yes, it has been extensively discussed, and I'm still trying to gain a better understanding of the bylaw process. But what I do know is that during the times of the year where there are provincial fire bans, we can definitely, those fines can be put in place by the appropriate people, and that the Cumberland Fire Chief is able to issue those fines. But yeah, during the time when the fire ban is not in place, there's some kind of, or the provincial fire ban is not in place, there's some kind of complicated issues around bylaws that, but I believe that the property is within the village of Cumberland, and Cumberland, you have to get a permit for any campfire. So I believe it would probably be enforceable, but it's complicated. Yeah. Good question. Though we are working on that.
Okay, any other comments? I just wanted to talk about the waste, and I wondered if like human waste you're seeing, but what about animal waste? Because that was identified also as an issue. It's hard with people on trails because they just think, oh, the dog just goes off and it's not a problem. But when you have a large number of dogs on that trail, I'm just wondering if that's been identified as equally as much of an issue or more so, and if there's any way to deal with that.
That's a really good question. We have discussed it, but probably not to the extent that we might need to. I think that the only form that it's been counted in so far is if it's in doggy bags that get left behind.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the whole piece around being close to a water source. I know when I've gone out and see, human or animal waste right beside a creek or something, it's yeah, it's not really okay, but people do it anyway, don't pick up. Director Arbor, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. There was another point that I just realized, which is this is a pretty unique property in that it belongs to the water service. I'm just wondering if there could, if it's valuable for the water service to hold this piece of property. There's a new regional park service, so maybe we could sell it to them for $1. I'm just wondering, there's a lot of expertise in our park service, and I appreciate that staff is doing this with this one property. We bought it through this service, but I don't know through CEO or staff whether there's lessons learned so far in the water committee, you know, holding a property like this that has high public use.
That's an excellent point. I'll start by saying we work extensively with parks. We ask them, we pick their brains on everything that we do out there because they are the experts for sure, and we are not. And it is hoped that in the future that this could be a candidate for the Regional Park Service. But I think at this time, from their perspective, this is probably not one of their highest priorities.
Great, thank you. Okay, I think that's all we've got for discussion on this item, so thank you so much. Oh, I guess one thing I wanted to add or highlight is that I would hope that now that we have this draft plan in place, that things have improved from kind of the Wild West that we were seeing before we took over that. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think it would definitely be fair to say in terms of the level of public awareness, the stewardship culture that's growing out there, and the type of behavior that's being, again, it's not a park. We don't have any signage at the road saying this way to the park. And we are actively trying to not encourage, not discourage, but not encourage additional use of the lands. But it's inevitable with the width of the bridge there as well. It's an easier place for access. So access numbers have definitely increased, especially with the bridge there. But the type of behavior has also improved and is hopefully driving away some of the less desirable activity. So I do think there has been a shift out there, and it does take time for these shifts to occur. So we're just hoping that this continues in the same trend that it's currently seems to be moving in.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we've got this on receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt of this item? Seeing none, that's carried, and we'll go on to the water restrictions dashboard. Okay, that was Hillian and Grant, and we'll turn it over to staff. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Crystal Rose is here. Chris is our Senior Manager of Water Wastewater Services, and Chris will introduce this, what will become a monthly fixture on the Water Committee agenda for the next several months. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you to speak the water restrictions dashboard.
Thank you, James, and through the chair. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so this is the first of the series, as James mentioned. Second year that we've implemented this monthly dashboard during the dry season. So last year was the first year. So our practice is to bring a first report forward in June, reporting out on the first month of restrictions, which is May, and then going through to November, reporting out on hopefully the last month of restrictions, along with a summary of the season's restrictions and drought conditions, etc. So that's at the end of the season in November. So we also, it's the same dashboard being brought through all of the committees. So yesterday we brought it through the Black Creek Oyster Bay Committee and the EASC. Yeah, so the dashboard provides a summary of key metrics that are relevant to each of the service areas. So for the Comox Valley water system, we highlight the lake level. So as you can see, from May 3rd to June 3rd, the reservoir level increased, and that's in line with BC Hydro's practice to get the reservoir as full as possible before the flows into the lake start to fall below the flows out of the lake. So we'd like to see that lake nice and full, which is about 135.5, I think. And since June 3rd, it's come up nicely. It's just below there. So it must be lapping at the top of the spillway now, which is really great. It puts us in as good of a position as we can for the season ahead, not knowing when the rains are going to start again. And then the next one is Comox Lake inflow. So that's typically we just double the flow being measured down the Crookshank, which is about half of the volume flowing into the lake. So still fairly elevated with the snow melt ongoing, but tapering off. We receive a snow bulletin from our participation in a VIU initiative that measures snowpack. So at the end of in early May, looking at the April data, we were above average for snow in the watershed for the last 5 years, which we've been measuring. And then fast forward a month, we are now below average. So that heat in May definitely was getting rid of that snow and ice fairly quickly. And then the next one is the total consumption. So as the heat increases, people's watering does as well. So we've seen a big increase in consumption. I think we saw on Sunday, we saw 46 MLD day, which was our peak, which is getting up there for this time of year, and our peaking factor. So that's the ratio of our peak day that month to the average day in the winter when no watering is occurring. There was a suggestion made yesterday that we include some historical data as part of the dashboard. So I think that was well received, and so I think we'll likely do that. So moving forward, expect to see on the back side some graphs showing how we're comparing this year to last. So that'll help a little bit more data. And there was also a request that we weave into some communication with the public, just this kind of data, so the public has some visibility on our water situation in the various systems. So we plan to do that as well.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions or discussion? Seeing none, anyone opposed to receipt? Seeing none, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, I believe our last item is the water consumption report. Grant and Hamilton, and we'll turn it over to staff unless, sure, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I think we're here for any questions you might have on the monthly consumption report. I see Mike Hirschmiller is online. If you've got any questions that relate to this particular report,
Okay.
or Mike, if you had anything specific to share.
Thanks, James. Nothing specific to share about this report this month. Well, I guess maybe you can see on the average daily flows by region, we have two that are quite out of the Comox Valley system, as well as Comox First Nations have some very high numbers, and those are two fairly significant leaks. One was identified through help with us with KFN. Our senior operator went down and helped them identify quite a substantial leak, and that you'll see that over the April one as well. And through this report, and then looking at the meters, and we found a leak just actually yesterday and fixed it today in the Marsden system. So that will be bringing down that total. But other than those two leaks, nothing to report.
Great, thanks, Mike. Definitely supports an argument for meters and identifying those leaks. Okay, we'll send it over to Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair. Mike, we had a session with our staff recently on water consumption, and one of the things that became apparent is that concern over leaks is actually way more significant than the things that are often reported to us, like people washing their driveways. I know that we don't want to encourage that sort of behavior, but I think it was illuminating to just hear the significance of leaks compared to all those other types of frivolous use of water. Any comment on that?
Well, I mean, meters are one of the most effective way and efficient way to find leaks. We have these two leaks that I just discussed. Ironically, we're not on the homeowner side of the water meter, but we find dozens of leaks every time we do meter reads, and a lot of the time is if someone's using a pressure washer on their driveway, that's a very visible thing. It's a very quantifiable thing. When you have a leak in your property, that's not metered, perhaps it's, near a house and it's going into a perimeter drain and it doesn't even come to the surface. And there's really no way to tell that it's there unless you're measuring it. So that's, one of the main benefits of water meters for sure. These two were found that I just talked about based on our bulk meters. So not the residential meters, but the bulk meters, but again, found through a series of meters. So yeah, you can't overstate the importance of them to help with leak detection.
Great, thank you. And we'll send it over to Director Arbor next.
Yeah, just for interest, yesterday at ESC, we discussed the union-based system and we have up to 40% loss, in the line. So that's pretty bad shape. But what was really cool in that meeting is that staff came back with, we're going to do a purchase of new meters that are kind of smart meter and have leak detection over the next 3 years. And then we'll eventually get to full 100% coverage of that system. But I think that learning, it's like, of course, that technology is advancing. And in case of our water system in Union Bay, it's basically at capacity right now. So we're counting on that leak identification and fixing to actually open up more capacity for the system. So definitely worth considering at the broader Comox Valley system. We've talked about water meters plenty of times at this table. So I'll just leave it there for now. Thanks.
Okay, I don't see any further lights on. So anyone opposed to receipt of this report? Seeing none, that's carried, and I believe that's the end of our agenda. Okay, great. Thanks, everybody.